Hi church. Recently in our October church meeting, we voted to leave our building. Now I realise that is a huge decision, and for many of you there are questions. And so we wanted to take a few moments of your time to try and answer some of those questions, to share what has happened, what is happening, and what we hope will happen. Why would we decide to leave this building? We love this building. This building has been where we have gathered to worship Jesus for years, and amazing things have happened here. Marriages, baptisms, community events, people coming to faith, and so much more. So why would we go? Well, we have voted to leave because we believe that being the church is more than just what happens in this building, and primarily because we feel that God has been calling us to leave this building into a new season. For me personally, that began when I was praying about the future of the church, and I felt God start to speak to me through the story, through the narrative of the Exodus, when God called his people out of slavery in Egypt, through the Red Sea, and into the wilderness where they met with him. While they were in Egypt, they lived under the rule of Pharaoh, and they were bound by the customs of that land, and that was their identity. Now they grew there, and lots of amazing things happened for them there, but that wasn't who they were to be. And so God set them free from that into the wilderness where they met with him, and the Bible tells us that there they got a new identity. There they became the people of God, and they followed him through the wilderness into the promised land. I believe that that is what God is wanting to do with us, to lead us into a new season, into a future of promise where he wants to use us in a new way. Now, there are loads of practical reasons I could give you about why to leave the building. When I think about that story about the people of God being in Egypt and how they were bound by the customs and the land of Egypt, I could think of things in our building that bind us. Yes, there are good things here, but there are also things that limit us. For example, right now, our kitchen is condemned. The heating is always a problem, isn't it? And we spend so much money on these things, money that we're blessed by God to have that could be blessing others in all kinds of other ways. One of the things that has been put to us is about our location. Yes, we're on the Wells Road and easily accessible, but we're a little bit out of community where we are. I don't think, though, that is the reason that God is calling us to leave this building. While there might be practical reasons that help us to make sense of what God might be doing, I think there's a bigger story going on here. I think this is about what God is calling us into. You see, throughout the Bible, God calls people from one place to another again and again. One of those people was Abraham. And when God called Abraham, he said, "Abraham, follow me to a land that I will show you." Not a land that I have shown you, but a land that I will show you. And Abraham went in faith and followed God to the land that he would be shown. Again, with the Israelites, when they came out of Egypt, they knew they were going to a land flowing with milk and honey, but there was a long journey where they had to faithfully follow God through the wilderness, trusting that he would get them there to that land where they would live as his people. And I believe that God is calling us now to be a people that trust him, a people of faith, a people that long to be defined by him, not by our building, by who he is, not by the things that we do, but the things of his heart and what he is calling us into. And so this is the beginning of our journey into this new season as God calls us to be his church here in South Bristol for the coming years. Well, I said that God has been speaking to me about this sense of call to leave this building. He hasn't just been speaking to me, and he hasn't just been speaking to our leadership team either, but to a whole number of people who are part of this church. In fact, as God's been stirring that in those people, and they've been speaking to me and to members of the leadership team about it over 2022, that led us to start talking to the wider church about it. And that led to conversations in church meetings, to discussions, to spaces to ask questions and discuss this whole sense of call and what God is up to. And that led us to have prayer gatherings, to pray about it and to seek God. And then towards the end of 2022, in into 2023, we took a 3-month period where myself and the leadership team said nothing from the front about it to the church, and we just wanted to create space for those in the church to seek God and just hear his voice. And we asked that if you felt God speaking to you about that you come and speak to us. And out of that time came a whole load of prophetic words, all very different, but all pointing towards the same thing, that there was this sense that God was calling us out of this building into something new. With all of those prophetic words that we made available to the church to read, we felt that it was right to bring it to the church meeting to vote and to discern together this sense of God's call. In line with our constitution, we were looking for a 66% majority to vote yes to affirm the call of God to leave this building. In that first church meeting back in April of 2023, we did not get an affirmation of the call of God to go. We were one vote short of the 66%. Despite that, after that church meeting, as a leadership team, we could not shake this sense that God was still calling us to go. For me, it felt a little bit like when Moses went to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh said no, but he had to keep coming back. That said, we didn't want to lead the church through a season where the church felt like the leadership team were pressuring them into a decision that they didn't feel was right. So as a leadership team, we didn't talk to the church about the sense we had on our heart. Instead, what we did was we prayed. We said, "God, if this is really your heart, if you really are saying this, if you really want us to bring this back up again, then Lord, we need you to stir the hearts of those who voted no and have them come to us and tell us that you've spoken to them and that you've changed their hearts around this topic." And I couldn't believe it. Over the next few weeks after we prayed that, God answered that prayer. And one by one, a number of people in the church came to different members of the leadership team and said, "Guys, I think I got it wrong. And I think God's been telling me that actually he is calling us to go. When can we vote again?" Now, we couldn't just hold another vote. Our constitution doesn't allow us to hold another meeting and overturn a vote from a previous meeting. But what it did allow was for us to announce at the next meeting that at the following meeting we would revisit this, because a number of the church felt God change their hearts and minds on this. So then, in our October church meeting, we voted again, and we had a 75% majority to say, yes, we affirm the call of God to leave this building. There is a little bit more to this story, and it actually goes back a little longer than just our church meeting. This is not the first time that the people of Counterslip Baptist Church have felt God calling them to leave their building. In fact, Counterslip was originally founded over 200 years ago on a street in the centre of Bristol called Counterslip. At some point, the people there felt God calling them out of that building into a new building that they had built for them on Victoria Street, on the site behind me right here. Then in 1938, the people of Counterslip Baptist Church that met just over the road from where I am now felt that God was calling them to leave the site that they were on and go somewhere new. They believed it so much that they had it published in the newspaper, and you can see that now on your screen. It says, "Counterslip Chapel is moving." And later in the article, it says that they didn't know where the new church site would be. They trusted that God was going to lead them. The church didn't actually move until after the war, when the site behind me was bombed, and eventually they bought the site up in Hengrove and Whitchurch, where we are currently located, in an area where new houses were being built and people were moving in. The church moved to where the people were to serve the community and to bring the love of God and the kingdom of heaven to those people. And that call of God for the church to go out and be where the people are, to take the kingdom of heaven out into the community, has never gone away. And so in the 1990s, while Nigel Coles was the minister here at Counterslip, the church was still sensing that call, and they planted a congregation here in the school behind me at Bridge Farm. And still later in the 2000s, well, Ian Sinclair was minister of Counterslip. That call of God to go out into the community had not gone away. And the church began to look at moving from its current site to a site that was being redeveloped here at Asda. So the vote that we have just had, where we've discerned the call of God to leave this building, that is part of a much bigger story, of a story where God has been leading the people of Counterslip again and again and again to step out and to trust him and to go where he is leading them. And that is what we are hoping to do now. What's happening right now following the vote is this. The trustees are meeting and they are formulating a framework to help us as church discern God's heart and leading in this journey. That framework is looking at 3 key areas. One being what we do with this site. Do we sell it? What does that look like? How do we do that? And that involves us talking with the WebNet Trust Company and other organizations as we look to how we will handle the premises that we currently have. Also, we are looking to the future, where we will go, both long term and short term. As part of that, a number of words have started to come in already that seem to be leading us in a certain direction and a certain area. But we're going to discern that together as church as we start to look at that. And the third area is transition, how we move from one to the other, what things we will take with us, what things we won't, what we will do in the in-between time. But as we start to bring this framework together, we will bring it to you as a church family in the coming year through our church meetings and various prayer gatherings that we will have, so that together we can continue to discern God's heart and his leading for his people who are part of this church now. We hope that this video has been helpful in explaining to you the journey that we've been on, our heart in it, and our sense of God's leading us as a church. We don't know exactly when and where God will lead us, but like Abraham, we've now responded to the call of God to say, yes, we will follow you and we will go where you lead. So let me encourage you and ask you to be praying with us, to be open to the voice of God and to the leading of his Spirit. Pray for wisdom, pray for direction, pray for opportunities and open doors. Pray for a unity and a oneness among us as his people as we press forward into the plans that God has for us. Also, let me encourage you to join with us in 2024 at the various gatherings and meetings that we're going to be holding, where we can come together as church to discern God's heart together, to pray and to seek his leading. This is an uncertain but exciting time for us as Counterslip Baptist Church in this part of our history, where we again get to learn what it means to be a people of faith who step out trusting the leading of our God, a God who is good, a God who is faithful, and a God who has plans for us and for this part of our city. Here we go again. I'm the okay. My hands might move. It's cold. Okay. Toes.